Today we focus on three topics primarily, and then our usual health tips, etc. The first is Tesla is going through a complete reorganization right now in terms of how the company is run, what the priorities are, and how Elon handles them, including closing down a number of mall-based facilities. We also have a look at the SEC visit for Elon, or response that's due on the 11th of this month. And then finally, we take a look at the new 220 mile in range Model 3 to sort of determine sort of what's going to happen next in this space. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. For those of you who are first timers, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. I wanted to note that we're shooting in one of my favorite spots here next to Potomac. We're in a place called Alexandria, Old Town, Virginia, I believe the first capital of the United States. And we're right next to the Potomac. It is a jetway, so you may hear a couple of jets go by occasionally. We've been a little bit we've been a little bit slow on shows lately because we have a number of sort of redo of process in terms of camera and other equipment, because our goal is to really do a great job so you guys can hear us and see us well without issues. Happens to be a nice sunny day, and getting out is a great opportunity right now. Also wanted to note, I can see when all of you are saying hello, and I appreciate it, but viewers that see us not on the live feed have asked that we wait until the end of the show to say hello to everyone, so I'm going to honor that. So let's get into our show today. The first thing that's happening is, as you've all noticed, the stock price of Tesla has been getting smashed. It's down from approximately $300 down now into the 270s, or 70 or 71, pushing back up again. As we all know, there's been some rough news that's been coming out. Elon announced that Tesla would not be profitable this quarter, didn't necessarily explain why, and it sort of continues the pattern on Elon making comments that are stock moving, but when you don't give a really solid explanation so people can understand the logic, it can affect whether or not people are confident. And so the trend is when things are happening at Tesla that are unexplained, or at any company, there's a first, let's run for the hills first, and then ask questions later. So my expectation is that most of the what's going on with the company is known, and so as you know, it's found out that there isn't any major crisis that's emerged, I do expect the stock to bubble back into that 300 range, as there isn't a crisis going on with the company that has not been developed. Another element of this sort of reorg is what's happening in China. It was stated that the new Chinese factory would be ready by May, and I think that's good news, but on the other bad news side was announced that 1,600 Model 3s have now been held up by the Chinese government because of a gap between stated specs and actual specs. And so I expect this actually to work out pretty quickly because of how important China is to Tesla and Tesla is to China. I'm also intrigued, or really looking forward to the China plant, because when we visited the Gigafactory, or last week we visited the Fremont factory, and it was really emphasized to me that if in fact there was an earthquake that happened, Tesla would be in very bad shape, because the location of the factory is in an area where things called liquefaction occurs, where the ground during an earthquake will actually turn to liquid, and pretty much, you know, everything there would sink into that mud. So it would at least be 3 to 6 months, maybe even a year, before production would start again from that facility. So having a second location up and running in China or anywhere else in the world would be really helpful to fill in the gap should there be an emergency requirement. The next thing that is going on with the organization redo of Tesla is, as Elon discussed, they're shutting down a number of, or most of the locations inside of malls. It's bad news for the mall owners. Their stock prices are down. It's bad news for the employees being terminated. I think that's unfortunate. And I wanted to say that I think we're all in this together in terms of helping the transition to electricity. And my concern about this whole thing was it was announced that there are many people whose salaries have been cut in these facilities, number one, and then number two, they're then getting layoff notices. So for those of you who are rabid fans that visit the service centers or visit the stores, I wanted to encourage you to maybe, hand a gift card over for coffee or whatever you can do, because it's unfortunate to see all these folks that wanted to support the dream now in the termination lines. And I do think that's really unfortunate. I also wanted to note that in our next show coming up, we're working to get the cameras working properly. But basically, we're doing kind of an expose on the Gigafactory. Based on our estimates, Tesla could earn another $1 billion in revenue a year if the area where parking is managed at Tesla was handled better. So we look forward to sort of diving into that with you and determining, little small and large changes that might occur that would add a huge amount of cash to the company and possibly increase the stock dramatically. So I think that'll be an excellent show, worth your time. Encourage you to look for that show. It's now Thursday. We'll be putting that show up on Saturday of this week, and I think it's going to come out really interesting. I think you'll find the information useful. The next area I wanted to cover today is the 3/11 date with the SEC. Tesla is due to answer the questions posed by the SEC regarding Elon violating the agreement, or at least the judge is requiring a response from Tesla regarding Elon violating the agreement he made and was fined for. And based on, as I said, all of our analysis from experts, the suggestion is it'll be 2 or 3 strikes, and so Elon will get a slap on the wrist, probably lose some money in the deal, but at the end of the day stay in his position and not get the death penalty until there's a third infraction. But it feels like he's moving towards embracing more of the rules of the SEC rather than trying to sort of duck them, if you will. I would say that I'm a little concerned about what Tesla has chosen to do in this regard, because the fact that the attorney that's been selected to take over as chief counsel doesn't have the experience with working with the SEC or in a large government role like that the previous one did, and a new person with 20 to 30 years of legal experience in this realm has not been recruited yet. So I really feel like Tesla's got people willing to work hard on the bench and that are smart, but having experience and exposure to judges and prosecutors and regulators over a long period of time and understanding what they want, Tesla really doesn't have this in place. So it's my belief that the company is really not really handling the preparation for this well. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll all know more. Obviously, the response is due by the 11th of the month, and then I think that it'll probably take the judge a week or two to make the decision on what both sides are saying about this in terms of penalties that might occur. It is still the winter months, and it is absolutely freezing out here, so I have to go for the combo hat here to make sure frostbite doesn't set in. The last thing that we wanted to primarily focus on today was the fact that the new Model 3 has come out, and it's significant news, and I'm pleased that it's been announced and coming out relative to the fact that it's sickening to hear constant comments about Elon not delivering on that vehicle. There's been all that discussion about the lowering of prices, and all those price lowering efforts have been designed to, or lowering costs relative to employees primarily. And the great question right now is, can Tesla make money while it's producing a 220-mile range Model 3? And so the answer to this is we're going to find out. It's looking it's looking Wow. Great comments that you've all made. We've definitely been working hard on addressing wind noise. As you can see, the wind baffle we have here. So in my case, I'm actually looking at getting the Model 3. I anticipated that the way to get to that $35 price point was to make a smaller battery. And once you did the small battery, you're now able to offer it at a lower price because your raw material costs are lower. So all of this made sense in terms of what was going to occur. The big problem, though, that pops up is that there's something that I learned I call it the 175 rule that we've talked about. So Tesla actually set up superchargers at gaps of 175 miles apart when you're not in primary large cities. So one of the biggest reasons Tesla is selling well is that they have ability of cars to move around long distances up and down the East Coast and other areas with fairly short 35 minute wait times as the car was charged up and they could continue. And other manufacturers don't have that luxury, which is one of the biggest reasons that Tesla has gained all these sales. So a good buddy of mine, who's one of our advisors to the show, articulated the fact that when he bought his Model S, 220 miles of range was the target. He had vehicle number 5,000. Over a 4 or 5 year period, he went from about 200 miles of range to about 198. And the issue is, if it's winter months or if you have the AC or air conditioning or heater on, there's a potential for battery to be used in that process. So he had articulated to me that one of the challenges was, if it's a cold day, you're trying to make it between superchargers and you only have 20 miles of range and the gap of the superchargers is 175 miles, you end up with this interesting sort of white knuckle situation trying to get between them. So I have to admit that as I was looking at vehicles, I was really thinking about the fact that if I purchased a car, I was trying to target about 250 mile range because that allowed me to have some wiggle room in terms of using air conditioning or heat if I needed to, etc., and not worrying about whether or not I could work between superchargers. The response given by my friend advisor in this regard was, he said that with the new vehicle, it's likely to have more range than the 220 listed. They just pick a number that's going to be absolutely accurate, but likely will exceed that mileage, so it wouldn't be as big a concern. I think it's easy for him to say because he's got 310 miles of range with the version with the long range version of the Model 3 that he chose. As I interviewed people owning Nissan Leafs and other EVs that are moving over to Tesla, what I noticed was that one of the biggest reasons was that 300 mile of range was almost super critical. And I guess the question I would ask of Tesla is there anything else we can get rid of that would allow us to still get 250 mile of range without giving up so much battery that you drop down to only a 220 mile of range available. So obviously the answer is that's the best that they can do. I believe that hopefully we can get prices down enough so we can get up into that 250, 260 range, because I do think that's kind of what's needed to be viable. I wanted to ask her a few questions here. Greetings to Jerry, Jim, and all of you, Josh, etc. that said hello. I actually moved from California to DC, but was in California this past weekend. Shot a whole bunch of photos and videos. For those of you who look us up on Patreon or on Teslafaninsight on on Facebook, we've started posting pictures of things that we saw at the factory that were kind of interesting, that had not been discussed previously. Actually interesting, Audi Etron and their plans to go all electric. We had in a last show the fact that in Europe, people driving the Audi Etron are experiencing 250 miles when you're in a comfortable 50 to 70 degree range, but when you're in freezing temperatures, experienced users are finding that they're only getting between 30 and 60 miles worth of range. So I think I want them to do well because we want EVs to be everywhere, but it's hard to imagine consumers in colder countries being really thrilled about 30 to 90 miles of range, and they have to go through slow charging once they deal with that range. So I think the car exists. I think it's a good first effort in entry of into the high end by VW, Audi, and their e-tron, but I think it'll get better over time. It's just that I think they're sort of getting their feet wet. Josh, I did hear the details of the Maxwell acquisition. They're being sued, is what I understand, to stop the deal. My gut says that it's good that it's slowing down, and if the company keeps doing badly and Tesla doesn't benefit from the affiliation, the deal might end. And I have to admit, that's kind of what I'm hoping for, because I think that that company's stock price will continue to fall if Tesla doesn't buy them, and therefore Tesla will be able to then go in and buy the company for way lower prices than you're currently seeing. We have a service vehicle backing up here, so I'm going to let him finish up his noise making. So I also wanted to highlight to those of you who own Model 3s in cold climates, one of the stories that came out that I think is really important. Wow, interesting. Interesting. There was a question about why not stick around for the Model Y reveal. One of the things we've discussed is the fact that on the Model S and X, they have what's called an air ride system. So what you could actually do is elevate the car. So that's half the battle of an SUV, is just a higher riding position. And the other part of the battle is obviously a higher line and back, so you can carry things back there. So the vehicles are very close to each other. I think it's good it's going to be revealed. What I'm wondering about is who cares? To be honest with you, I really care about cars that are supposed to be here in the next 3 to 6 months, and the ones that are 1 to 2 to 3 years out, I think are interesting, but not as interesting as the stuff that's supposed to be here now. So I think that's kind of where I'm at in terms of my evaluation of that car. When I really dig into it, when you say the Model Y, what I'm really interested in is what happened to the Roadster, and where is the Semi, and when are they coming out? So I'm a lot more interested in those questions than I am in what's going on with the Model Y, because the Model Y is a nice car. It's going to be coming out, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to happen between now and when that comes up. And hopefully that goes smoothly, because as shareholders and people that want to see EVs do better, we're all kind of waiting on that part of things to occur in a good way. So my overall conclusion here is that I really feel that some of the changes being made by Elon reflect good fundamental decision making from a business standpoint. The closure of those stores is one of the things we talked about that needed to happen. The next piece is we need to get more service facilities open and cut drive time for both customers, etc. And one of you, I can't remember who, actually suggested that they should have mechanics sitting at the service facilities that can do quick repairs or evaluation of vehicles to help customers in that regard. I was at the main factory and watched hundreds of cars going through, and there were no folks, there were no service people out to sort of take a look at cars as they came in. So we shall see what occurs here. The next thing I wanted to really dive into is, what happens in the next quarter or two. We're keeping an eye out for what's going on with European sales. Are the customers happy? The one story that's still under review for me and others is what's going on with the sand that's collecting in the Model 3. Evidently, those people that live on the colder climates where salt is being used and sand are finding that there is a large amount of sand and gravel that's being collected in the rear underside of the car. And one of the ways you know you have a problem is the weight of the vehicle is increasing by as much as 30 pounds worth of sand, salt, etc. And you're having mechanics having to go in essence, drain this area for those customers. So if you're in a cold area and viewing us, and good idea there, Roger. 20 Model Y and 20 trucks at the same time. Sounds like fun. I have to say that this is a kind of concerning, and for those of you who are in sand-heavy zones or heavy winter zones, I also wanted to encourage you to keep an eye on the car weight, because if in fact your car is starting to collect debris, you want to know where it's going in and how much, of it you're having with you. That way you can know how to kind of get rid of it and, get the car working back in shape again. We're sort of rolling into the amount of time that we like to cover or use. I'm happy to close out with our usual health tips that we've talked about numerous times, and you guys can pose any final questions you might have during this time. First of all, a reminder, do I recommend the cars do sand lifts? Good question. Anybody that has an answer to that one can put it in our notes here on this show, but I do not have a good one for that one. Just a note, 20 leg lifts a day on each leg with a 5-pound weight is highly recommended. Don't go to bed within 2 hours of eating, preferably 4 hours. Much healthier move. Fried foods only once a week if possible. 2 or 3 times, power walk for a half hour or more would be good. Excellent question. Do you think the Model Y will have towing? And the answer to that is that they should have towing. The question is, do you want to do it because of how much battery life you'll give up to get it? But I do believe it will have towing because it is being set up as an SUV. So I think that's going to work. I guess what I can't figure out though is why would people pay $100 grand, $150 grand for a Model X when they can get that instead? Okay, I'd have to agree with you about the fact that they likely don't need Maxwell, but if there's a way to cut the cycle time to get something done by acquiring a company, I think it's a good idea. I was actually thinking a smarter move would be to tie up Maxwell in agreements, and then if their stuff works or is useful, then buy the company versus buying first and then figuring out if it adds value second. Well, I see Michael, thank you for your comment, Roger as well. It is absolutely freezing out here, and my hands are about to freeze off my body, so I think it's a good time to end our show for the day. I want to thank all of you for joining us. I'm looking forward to jumping into our factory video and look forward to sharing what we saw at the Gigafactory or the production facilities in our next show. And feel free, we look forward to any and all questions that are constructive. We want to see the company do well, and all of your input can be seen by executives as well. So again, thanks for joining us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss, macht's gut, au revoir, lehitraot, Hebrew, lehitraot, choda hafez, Farsi. In Jamaica, we say, enough respect, walk good man. I hope you have a great day. Bye for now, and thank you all for joining us.